We're often asked at Heritage Dialects, why? Why cultivate something that emerged during one of the most turbulent periods in our history? Why not simply move on? Why not just speak the common language and be, quote-unquote, Americans? We answer that with a question of our own. What is an American? The United States has no federally declared official language. While English functions as dominant in many spaces, the lived reality of this country tells a much richer story. In parts of Texas and New Mexico, Spanish shapes daily life. In Louisiana, French and Creole rhythms echo through generations. Across the nation, indigenous languages, immigrant languages, and regional dialects all coexist. America is not a single thread. It is a tapestry. And within that tapestry is the linguistic creativity of African Americans, a people whose ancestors were forcibly placed into bondage and deliberately stripped of their native tongues. When Tutnese first emerged, it did not arise as a national language. It was not a lingua franca, and it was not born from political consolidation or empire. It was coded, it was protective, it was strategic. It functioned as a linguistic shield. But what history often overlooks is this: what begins as survival can evolve into culture. Through sustained community use, through creativity, and through the inherent linguistic brilliance embedded in African American speech patterns, that coded system did not remain static. It expanded, it adapted, it layered itself onto existing African American language structures, it moved beyond concealment. And from that evolution, something deeper grew. What we now call Mama Tut reflects that growth, not merely a cipher, but a living linguistic expression shaped by rhythm, grammar, worldview, and intergenerational transmission. So when someone asks why we revisit its origins, why we trace the lineage from coded practice to cultivated language, the answer is simple: because origin explains function, and function explains identity. If we pretend it was always simply an argot, or merely just a code, or nothing more than play speech, we erase the brilliance of what it became. We miss the intellectual continuity between survival language and sovereign expression. America is woven from many linguistic threads, and African American language in its various forms is one of those threads. To ignore that thread is not unity, it is diminishment. In a country built from migration, colonization, forced displacement, and cultural blending, monolingualism is not a virtue. It is a narrowing. Language shapes cognition. It shapes perception. It shapes how communities organize meaning. To study one's linguistic heritage is not regression, it is expansion. And for African Americans whose ancestors were not allowed to speak their languages freely, whose mother tongues were suppressed, and whose descendants were later told they had no language at all, that what they spoke was broken, reclaiming and refining linguistic systems is an act of intellectual restoration. What began as coded Tutnese under constraint evolved, through use, refinement, and cultural grounding, into something cultivated. That arc matters. It shows transformation. It shows agency. It shows ownership. If we forget what shaped us, we forget the resilience that carried us. True citizenship is not cultural erasure. It is cultural responsibility. So when someone asks why preserve certain traditions, why practice certain languages, why study their origins, the answer is this: because those traditions are not relics of turbulence.